Last time we spoke about the faculties of consciousness. We also mentioned, we spoke about them again in our hymns to the mystic fire for some reason. And because this is the transition from the Vedic to the post-Vedic literature. And this transition is marked by Upanishads. It's quite interesting. So the Vedas are speaking about our faculties in the universal terms, in the characters of universal nature, and which are applicable to all the beings, yeah, and not only human beings, but also animals and creatures and animated and unanimated nature. So there are movements of universal consciousness, yeah, which are known in Jyotisha as devatas, standing behind the nakshatras and grahas, the constellations and planets. Universal movements which represent these activities of the devatas, of the beings, universal beings in our life. They are contributors to everything what is happening here. This is the Vedic vision. They contribute to our bodies, well, they build our physical bodies when we are born in a particular time and space, so they are the major contributors. You are born under a particular constellation and a particular influence of the planets, behind which there are devatas, the godheads, who, with their character, contribute to your character, to character of your body, your mind, your vital, your physical. So the whole constitution, what we inherited from the cosmos, is contributed by the devatas. This is the Vedic vision, which is actually becoming visible, so to say, in Jyotisha and Ayurveda. Ayurveda deals with these, inherited this idea of the types of human beings. Yeah? And also the Jyotisha inherited this typal approach to the human beings. If you are born under Mars, you will have a red hair, you will have a particular character, and it is applicable to all. These are the universal characteristics. By the way, we are planning to have the whole session on this, on the body, in this particular regard, speaking about characteristics of human beings from the universal point of view, the devatas. And then this all vision shifted and changed through the Upanishadic vision. So it was like 2000 BC, the Vedic vision at least. And then there was a period which came to the more individualistic approach to consciousness. And these devatas were seen already in a different light of mind and hearing and seeing and speaking and thinking and feeling and being in the body. You know? So all these devatas, Rashi is joining us, became these faculties. Yeah? And known to us as we know them within this physical being. So we think about them already, not about the Godheads of the universal nature, who actually are the cause of all what we are here in this world, but we think about them in the more restricted manner, as functionalities of our consciousness. This is the shift which took place from the Vedic to the post-Vedic to the Upanishadic first, and then post-Vedic even more, Sankhya. So what happened to Sankhya? Sankhya is bringing forward the mind as a capacity of consciousness to focus on anything, as the major faculty of consciousness, which dominates over all the other faculties, over seeing and hearing, speaking and thinking, and so on. So they are all belonging to the mind. Mind dominates. Mind decides what we have to hear, what we have to see, what we have to feel, because where we focus the consciousness, and that is the mind, that we feel, see or hear, or speak. So where our mind is, there our consciousness is, and the faculties are. So this is a new structure. It's a mental structure of consciousness in which we live today. So we lost our capacity to see, to hear. We are thinking. We are constantly operating by mental operations. But behind still there are other faculties, and behind there are even universal contributors to ourselves. Yeah, and this is something which we have to see. So it's a layer upon layer. So you see three different paradigms of knowledge. One is more universal from the Vedas, or other is more, how to say, individualistic, intuitive Upanishads, where all the faculties are still viewed as the faculties of Purusha, of our higher consciousness. And finally, it narrows down to the mental operations of consciousness, of the individualistic, egoistic application. We become egoistic, objective beings in the mental structure and operate on our own behalf in our very narrow, separated consciousness. Yeah, makes sense? So only in Indian tradition that we have all these three paradigms are covered within one tradition. And the link to all of them is Sanskrit language. Sanskrit language holds of all these three absolutely different paradigms of knowledge, and allows us smoothly to move from one to another, so to say, to move to our evolutionary past or our historical beginnings of consciousness. Why they are important? Because they constitute or manifest the historical depth of our consciousness in time. So we know ourselves as deeper beings, not just the surface modern beings of today who are operating with issues of today's life. We have the history behind, we have the depth, a cosmic depth, which we have to also comprehend and see and understand. And then we become something else. We become much more alive, as it were, much more conscious of who we are. And we can operate much more efficient in this world, even today's world, because that depth allows us to be more efficient and more attentive and deal with this reality in a more holistic and integral manner. Right? This was kind of long introduction to the transition from one form to another. So today we can take that transition more kind of precisely and look into the I did the overview, the formal overview of all the texts, but I never did the overview of the content. So I've just mentioned it. I mentioned things about the Rigveda, about the Upanishads, and about Upanishads we spoke more extensively, and about Sankhya. But about the Veda, the universal vision of the Veda. How it is being built, on what ground, I never spoke. So today I wanted to speak about that, about the Rigveda and what it represents, if you don't mind, actually. Basically, it was the announcement of that particular form of the Vedic. That is my major task. So I just gave you an overview where we are coming from, where we are heading at. But where we are heading at in the future is very interesting. So if we are in this narrow down consciousness, what is the future for us? So we came from vast view on consciousness to narrowing down to the more mental operations of consciousness. Now we are in this mental structure. So what is next? What do you think? Can we go even more down the stream, become even more narrow? Or there would be some change, unexpected change? According to Sri Aurobindo, there will be a change. So all these paradigms of knowledge, starting from symbolic age, or we can speak about them ages or structures of consciousness in Gipsarian language. Yeah, we start with archaic structure, then we move to magic structure, then to mythical, finally to mental structure in which we live. And from there we move, according to Gebser, Jean Gebser was such philosopher, to the integral structure. And according to him, integral structure will accommodate all the structures in more transparent way. He is using this term diaphaneity, the transparency. So all of them, magic, mythical, and mental, become transparent and become efficient rather than deficient. They do not kind of obstruct each other. They contribute to each other's knowledge. So they become harmoniously exercised within the integral structure. The same idea is taken by Sri Aurobindo, that when we come to Kali Yuga finally, by the yugas, let us speak about the ages, from Satya Yuga to Kali Yuga, or from symbolic age to the individualist age, which is our mental age, rational age. And from this individualist age, where everyone is thinking finally, so we developed from symbolic age, which was Vedic age, of the more universal structures, then to typal and then conventional age, narrowing down. Conventions became more important. The cloth became more important than the being, which is inside. So the body became more important than the soul within. So this kind of narrowing down to the surface. And in Kali Yuga, it is in the most rigid form, in the most surface form, let us say, where the body is everything, the appearance is everything, the presentation is more important than anything. How you made your presentation, was it perfect? It was perfect presentation. But the content, the meaning disappears, becomes less important, subordinate to the appearance. Then there will be breakthrough. We will come to the subjective age, where there will be transition. So in the subjective age, there will be return to the spiritual age, return to the Satya Yuga again, to the vast view. And how it will happen? It will happen to this subjective approach to ourselves and the world. Subjective operation of consciousness, let us call it like this. So we are now in this transition. We are becoming more and more subjective. Look at the world today. Everybody has his own opinion about things. There is no more kind of coming together anymore. Maybe only in China. Even in China, there is a diversity. Everyone is kind of becoming more and more subjective into the perception of the truth. And this subjective age is very dangerous because we do not have yet the truth. But it is the way to go deeper, to go inward, yeah, and to discover that innermost truth of ourselves, which will become one with the world. And that is again a vaster view where all these structures, all the ages become efficient rather than deficient. They will bring their elements to act upon our consciousness in a more efficient way. This was one introduction number 2. Now I'm coming to the finally I made the second round of the same with another language of structures and ages. I do not know whether you are even familiar with these languages of Gebser and Sri Aurobindo's human cycle. Some of you may have heard about it or knew about it. Others may have only very approximate. Since I don't see your faces, only Jessel is here, so I don't know your reaction, what you think about it. Maybe you are already kind of going into deep contemplation. What is he talking about? Thank you for showing your faces. It's kind of nice to see someone in front. Jessel was there, yes, but more people. So I was thinking to take today an overview on in the of the Rigveda, the oldest available to us literature. How it is built, what the content is, and who are the rishis, who are these poets who composed these verses of the oldest kind available to us today. So I will open the Rigveda Samhita for you to see what it is, and we will go step by step through all the books and through all the rishis and their hymns, if you don't mind. It is a good overview to make. Right? Let me open this Rigveda Samhita. Okay, I'm projecting. 1 second. Here it is. So it is Rigveda consists of, it's the oldest text, as you know. We do not know what time it belongs to. Different scholars give different time for it. Gonda speaks about 4500 BC. Tilak speaks about 6000 BC, earlier than 6000 BC. Taittiriya Samhita 6000. So the Rigveda must be much older. Other scholars give it 2000 even BC. But it is all a conjecture of some kind. We do not know the time. Why we don't know? Because there were no manuscripts. Yeah, it is the oral tradition. So oral tradition preserved the text. We can judge about the language and about what they are talking about there within the hymns, and by that we can kind of think what time it belongs to. So there are many different ways. Tilak found in the Taittiriya Samhita the reference to the constellations, and those constellations and grahas build up the time of 6000 BC. So if that was the time mentioned in the hymn, that means it belongs to that particular time, which is 6000 BC. But that is again, Sri Aurobindo said that actually he believes that Tilak was right, and it has its place for looking into it seriously, to the dating of the Samhitas. Yes. He refers to Tilak. Here, so what is Rigveda Samhita? Rigveda Samhita, Rigveda. Veda, as you know, it's knowledge. Samhita means collection of hymns of the Veda. Veda is not just knowledge, it is the discovery. It is the revelation of some kind. Yeah? Rigveda Samhita and other Samhitas belong to the Shruti, to the canon, as we looked into revelation. Rik means this word of the truth, the word of truth, of rhythm, of the dynamic truth, the dynamic force of consciousness manifesting the world. It is considered that the hymns were seen by the Vedic rishis. Notice, seen or heard or seen, sometimes even seen. They are drashtas, they are the seers. And they were revealed to them. Revealed is a better word. And that revelation became the hymn. So each hymn has a particular entry into the vision of the whole, into the dynamic vision of the truth. It's quite interesting. So there are 10 mandalas, 10 books within the Rigveda Samhita, more than 10,000 verses. And there are different, each mandala belongs to a particular family of rishis. We will come to it in a minute. Rishis and their families. There was the whole tradition of the Vedic rishis, which have their origin, gotra, from the gods. Rishis are treated in the Rigveda in a very interesting way. Rishis are those who reveal the word, who speak the word, who express the word. And Rishi can be anyone. Yeah? There are several Rishikas, more than 30 Rishikas. Rishikas are the female Rishis, the wives of the Rishis. It's also an interesting thing, many people may not know it even, that there were female rishis, which was later, in the later tradition, especially in the classical period, was very rare to even think of, that the woman can be the seer. And there are many beautiful rishikas here. Lopamudra, for example, the wife of Agastya Rishi, or Savitri, and so on. Savitri was also Rishika, and she created this famous hymn in 10th mandala, hymn of marriage of Soma and Surya. And this hymn is the most quoted in India and in the world, because every marriage has to, in the marriage, the Brahmin, the priest, is to recite this hymn. So you can imagine, so Savitri created this hymn, Savitri Rishika, which is the most quoted in the world. That's kind of interesting. So 10 mandalas, and you can see that in each hymn we see Rishich, Madhuchanda Vaishvamitra. It's the first hymn of the Rigveda. What is written here, Prathamam Mandalam, first book. And then in this first book, in each hymn we have 3 components which are explaining to us who is the Rishi. Rishi is here, he is the grandson of Vishwamitra, famous Rishi. And then Chandas. Chandas is the meter, the poetic meter, is Gayatri. We will speak on the meters also a bit. And Devata, the godhead or the deity, Agni, to whom it is dedicated. So we have Rishi, meter, and the Devata. In each hymn it is mentioned. Yes, if there are hymns which are more composed for different devatas, that will be also mentioned. Devata Vayu in 1 and 3, Indra Vayu, Indra and Vayu in 4 and 6, and Mitra Varuna and to Mitra and Varuna in 7 and 9 verse. So they will be kind of spelled out to whom the line is dedicated, to which devata. So all these hymns were recited and memorized by the tradition, and in the Gurukulas, yes, Brahmins were learning it by heart from the teacher, and it was in a manner, very interesting manner, how they learned it. So teacher repeats the phrase, and they says the phrase, and they repeat the phrase. For example, like he will say Agni Mihile, and they will repeat Agni Mihile, Agni Mihile, Purohitam. And they will repeat Purohitam, Purohitam. They repeat always twice. So teacher says once and they repeat twice, and in this way the whole hymn is read in this mantra patha. There are different ways of recitation. This is mantra patha, just kind of phrase by phrase, line by line, as it is, with Vedic accent. But there is also krama patha. Krama patha is a very different style. You will read in a different ways the words are composed. So to say, you will say Agnimile or Agnim, and then you will say Ritvijam, and then Agnimile, and then Devam Ritvijam. So you will start from both ends. So you will start composing words in a different kind of weaving different tapestries, weaving different pictures of through words. And there are 8 different styles of weaving the words. Yeah? And because of that, the whole tradition could preserve in memory the text. Yeah? Because if you go through the text in so many different ways, you will definitely remember it. So it wasn't only one way of learning by heart. There were 8 different ways of learning the same hymn by heart. And then you can't be mistaken. Even in one way you forgot something, in the other way it will come back to you. So you can reconstruct it in the first way. Yeah? So even if you get in all 7 ways and only one way you remember, that will give you all the material necessary to reconstruct all the 8 ways and the original mantra patha reading. So it could not be forgotten. And I mentioned already this before, that when Western scholars came to India and they collected hymns from the south, north, middle India, from different gurukulas, they were surprised to see that the texts are nearly 99.9% identical. That means that we are dealing with authentic recitation text. Because, you don't have time to really go to the north and check how they are reciting. In your village, you have to transmit the text of 10,000 verses to the disciple who has to learn it by heart in your village, and he will be doing it to his disciple. You have no time to correlate it with other readings all over India in different villages. It would not be possible. There is no time for it, and there is no scope. You can't do it physically. So they were surprised because the recitation was so accurate. So the text was authentic because the recitation was so accurate that no other kind of tradition of writing tradition could preserve. When the scribes are writing, they are always making some mistakes and some, adjustments, especially to the times where they live with some king who wants himself to be more famous, or he follows Buddhism or this or that, and so on. Religions and sects and preferences are all projected in these scriptures. Yeah? So the history was rewritten many times. Every time new king comes, a new history appears. Yeah? So scribing tradition is very different than the oral tradition. Oral tradition is much more accurate, it seems. So in Aitareya Brahmana also there is a prohibition for people who study, for the shishyas, for the pupils who study the Veda, for brahmacharis, to write. So among many prohibitions, they should not eat fish and meat, they should not do this and that. And one of those prohibitions, they should not write. So the writing was there, it was used for other purposes, but not for the texts. Texts were not written down until 14th century AD. In 14th century AD, Sayanacharya started with his group of Brahmins in Maharashtra. He started to make commentaries on the Samhitas. And these commentaries were written. And once you write the commentaries, you write also the phrase from the Veda. That's how they were written, because you comment on the phrase. So you know it by heart, but you comment on the phrase, and so you mention the in the written way the phrase. So that's how the written form came to us, from 14th century AD only.
Vladimir, what were the 8 ways of learning?
Yeah, right. Somewhere in my introduction, I put that paper there to show you how it was done, and gave you the examples. I can open the paper 1 second. You want to see those 8 ways?
Yeah, it'll be nice, because right now it's much, you can feel what you're saying.
Okay.
So it's not just information.
Let me find the text. And there's a Shruti and Smriti. Wait a minute. Let me project. This paper you need to have for your kind of, these are all the essentials. I think I put it into the file, Shruti and Smriti, with Sri Aurobindo's quotations and explanation of all the literature, how it was done. This is what we did in our introduction in a brief manner. Here it is, oral tradition. And you can see mantra patha is a normal way as it is, and pada patha is word by word. You read every word separately as it is without sandhis, and krama patha has many different ways. I don't give them here. There's another where I give them. Here it is. Yeah. In appendix, 8 styles of Kramapatha. So Jata style is one. These are the numbers of the words in the verse. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 words, for example. So you have 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 3, 3, 4, and so on. Then you come to 6, 6, 7, 8, 8, 7, and then you go 7, 8, and then you repeat again. So this is Jata. Then there is Shikha. 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2 3 3 2 2 3 4 and so on. This is another style. This is Jata style in 2, Jata in Shikha. Then there is Danda style. There are many different ways. 1 2 2 1 1 2 2 3 3 2 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 4 3 2 1 and so on. So you grow, grow, grow. You can imagine you are like jonglieren, you're like making with words, but you know in your mind the style. So you take the word, you put it into a different position. And I'm giving here this example with the phrase Oshadhayach, some Oshadhayach, some vadante, some Oshadhayach, some vadante, somena vadante, some Oshadhayach. So you sometimes you hear these Brahmins doing it, and you wonder why they repeat the words and back and forth and back and forth. So they are going through the hymn in a way that, and then Mala Patha. So Mala is another style. 1 2 6 6 2 3 6 5, going from backward. So you first of all, you have in the memory the whole text, then Rekha, 1 2 2 1 1 2, and so on. Then the Dvaja, the final one. Yeah. So if you want to know, you can see these styles. Yeah. And Ghanapatha is the most popular nowadays. You can hear mainly Ghanapatha. It is this style, the first Lakshanam and the second Lakshanam. This is the most popular nowadays. If you ask Brahmins to read you in this style, they will read the Ghana mainly. Yeah. So you can imagine, so you spent from 6 years old when you were initiated into Brahmachari till 30 doing this. Your day and night. Yes.
Can I just say something quickly?
Yes.
Vladimir, when you were repeating, you were reciting just now, some of the sounds from the hymn.
Yeah.
And I felt that a constant repetition of the sound creates a feeling of going inward. As you were repeating it, I could feel myself being drawn towards an inner self. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but I think constant repetition, if you hear it over a long period of time, like half an hour or 30 minutes, 40 minutes, the same sound being repeated, it creates a kind of a mental state where it is easy to go within.
Yeah, absolutely. It creates the foundation for the physical to hold on to this consciousness of the rishis. And that's what Indian tradition created for India. It is because of these Brahmins in Gurukulas repeating these millions of Brahmins, thousands of generations repeating these hymns back and forth day and night, that India is what it is. Yeah, this peace in the land, this feeling of home. Yeah, they generated physical kind of vibration, which one can feel immediately coming to India. Sri Aurobindo felt a total peace descended upon him when he arrived at Bombay. I myself, without referring to Sri Aurobindo, when I came to India, I couldn't believe how I was pervaded by soft and warm peace. Yeah, there was the feeling of arrival when I came first time to India. It was like, I am home. I can lie down on that warm land, that kind of soil, and just rest. Because I was at home. There was total security feeling. I don't know, and I never had anywhere. Coming from Soviet Union, which was collapsing that time, with everywhere these gangsters and criminals. Coming to India, it was like, you can again be, not just live. So, yes, it is India. It's because of these Brahmins. Their contribution is profound. Rishis first. So, Rishis, who are these Rishis? Rishis are the poets or the seers. They have the families. And somebody asked the mother, who are these Rishis? Are they like human beings? Or maybe they are not. So mother says that rishis are actually not evolutionary beings. They are not like human beings. We are all evolutionary beings. Maybe some of us not. But we are all evolving. We have souls evolving in us. The others, the involutionary beings, as mother says, the rishis are. Rishis are those beings who came down to us. Yeah? They are not here to evolve. They are here to bring the knowledge down from the highest height and to establish it here for us to repeat and to grow into it and to become it. So they are involutionary beings. This is the term coined by the mother, involutionary beings. They are involving the divine truth here. So, like avatars are involutionary beings. Yeah? So you can imagine these are the families of avatars. Yeah? Coming down with the knowledge, higher knowledge, to establish it here for humanity. It's the whole vision, the plan, the vision of embodiment for humanity. It has to be kept intact. It has to be living. And that's why it should not be written. It has to be orally transmitted. It has to vibrate, to be spoken rather than to be written and forgotten, as it is usually the case. So there are many rishis. Yeah? There's a huge number of rishis, the families, but there are first Purva Rishayach. Who are these Purva Rishayach? As in the first hymn of the Rigveda, Agnif Purvebhich Rishibhich Idio Nutanai Ruta. And Agni should be worshipped by the first rishis and the modern ones. So in the Rigveda itself, there are modern rishis and ancient rishis are mentioned. Though Rigveda itself is the oldest treatise, the oldest book available on earth, still they mention both ancient and modern rishis. So these modern rishis are those who are speaking the hymns, and the ancient rishis were some other rishis. So it seems there was a culture, a tradition, which was ongoing for many thousands of years before Rigveda. And in the Rigveda, the most ancient parts are called Nivids, Nivid. Yeah? Veda and Nivid, this term is important. And in those verses, the most ancient verses, here and there we find them as quotations, where rishis are quoting the ancient Nivids. The language is very archaic. The distinction on the nouns and verbs are not yet totally clear. So nouns and verbs are very closely related. You could see very simplistic, archaic language. So I want to say that this tradition is ongoing. It was always there, yes, before even the Rigveda. And tradition also mentions many different schools of recitation. I was already telling you about this, how many schools of Rigveda, of Yajurveda, and so on, are mentioned in the tradition, which are lost in time. So what else I wanted to say? Yes, about mandalas, about 10 books. So the first mandala is, and the 10th mandala, the first and 10th, are the composition of many different families of rishis. they were composed by, traditionally it is believed, Rigveda Samhita was composed, the collection of the hymns was made by Vyasa. Vyasa, who composed also Mahabharata, who composed also Puranas, he is the one compiler. He compiled all the hymns of the Vedas, of the Puranas, and all Mahabharata created. So it's a kind of mythical figure, Vyasa, someone who made these compilations. It seems that this composition in the books was made by him, but there was a more free version of Rigveda before. So to say, they were not put into these books. That is his contribution to the tradition. So the first and the 10th are the biggest books in the Rigveda, and they are composed by many different rishis. Compositions, hymns of many different rishis. So I will look into the first book. So you can see it starts with Madhuchandas Vaishvamitra, who was the grandson of Vishvamitra, the author of the third book, third mandala. Yeah? Vishvamitra was the composer of the third mandala, and the whole family of his sons and grandsons are there mentioned in this mandala. They are all the composers of those hymns. But also in the first mandala, first 11 verses, first 11 hymns are composed by his grandson. There is a reason for it. We will see out of content the first hymn to Agni, why it is here in starting the Rigveda. But each book is dedicated to a particular rishi, as I said. The first one is a composition of many rishis. So if we look into the content, we will see that Madhuchandas is 10th and Madhuchandas is 11th. And then we go into the 9, 11. 11 is already Jeta, Madhuchandasa. So it is the son of Madhuchandas Rishi. It's by the names we know. So there was his son who was the composer of the 11th hymn. And the 12th hymn of the first mandala is already Medhatithi Kanva. The whole Kanva tradition of rishis comes. It will be quite a few hymns. And then you see so many Medhatithi Kanva, 21, 22, 23. And then there will be Shunakshepa. Shunakshepa is a typical myth of the Rigveda, of the immortality, an amazing myth, which is mentioned in Aitareya Brahmana and so on. Shunakshepa Rishi speaks here. It is his hymns, several of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we have Hiranyastupa Angiras, another Angiras, from the family of Angirasa rishis, another rishi, great rishi. Hiranyastupa, you can immediately understand, for those who know Sanskrit or Hindi, is the golden pillar. Golden pillar, Angiras is flaming golden pillar, such a name. Right, expressing actually a profound vision of the. So he starts with the hymn to Agni. He has very beautiful, profound hymn to Savitar, Indra, and now it will come Ashwins, and finally Savitar, Devata Agni, 35. Here it is. And if you look at this Savitar hymn, how he starts his hymn is so profound. Havayami Agnim. I call Agni Prathamam first. Suastaye for well-being. Havayami Mitra Varunau Ihavase. I invoke Mitra and Varuna, the divine consciousness and being, here, in the body. Avase for growth and expansion. Havayami Ratrim. I invoke the night. Jagatoni Veshanim, who introduces all the beings into this world. Our Ratri is the location for all the souls. We are like the stars of light in the darkness. She is the location. He invokes her as the Godhead. Havayami Devam Savitaram Utaye. I call for Lord Savitar, for the supramental consciousness, for its support and expansion. Utaye. So you can just gather what it is all about. What a grand vision and invocation. It's all tuning us to the highest in ourselves. So Hiranyastupa and Girasa, then other rishis come one by one. Again Kanva Gaura. Then from Kanva family, in the first mandala, Kanva still from Kanva. And then Angirasas. I want to come to some rishis which you may know. Sri Aurobindo translated many of them. Gautama. So there is Gautama Rahuganaha, very great rishi, and he has many Gautamas. Gautamas are his family, his Gotra. So his children, grandchildren, Nodha Gautama is one of his offsprings. We do not know whether child or grandchild. But these names are for me very, very kind of significant. Gautama Rahugana, we will be later, but this now Parashara. Parashara Shaktya is a famous rishi. He was the composer of Brihat Parashara, Jyotisha. Yeah? He is the visionary of the whole astrology in Indian tradition, Vedic astrology. And here he dedicates several hymns, 6 hymns to Agni, only to Agni, Parashara Shaktya. And they have composed in a very specific meter, very rare meter, Dvipada Virat, which is unusual, 10-syllabic meter, which is trochaic, which is kind of standing out. Rigveda does not follow. Rigveda has different meters. I will speak on meters later. And I will mention Parashara Shaktya again, because it's a unique meter, what he is using. Sri Aurobindo translated all of his hymns. And now we come to this grand rishi, Gautama Rahuganaha, a very ancient one. Gautama means most luminous. Yeah, Go is the ray of light. So Gautama, the most luminous. It's interesting to translate these names. We usually don't translate them. But when you translate, you will see that they have meaning. He has many hymns, 26 or something. So you see, in order to pile up all these hymns into the sections, Vyasa did these compositions. So to say, in the first mandala, he composed rishis, he put the compositions of rishis from different families in sections, instead of giving them separate books, because they don't have enough for the books. So he made them, kind of compiled them into one mandala, into one book. Gautama has many hymns, still his hymns. And now we are coming to the Kutsa Angirasa. Angirasa Kutsa is a famous rishi because he was friendly with Indra. Indra was his major devata, major patron, who was actually, it's like Arjuna and Krishna. Kutsa and Indra are also connected. And Indra took him in his chariot to his heaven. He took his own chariot with Kutsa and brought him to his heaven. So similar to Arjuna and Krishna. And he has marvelous hymns. Maybe I will quote from one of them, just for you to know. Katsangirasa. The hymns to the dawn, my favorite, and to Agni. I think we will have to go to 125. There will be a little later. He has also many hymns. And Indra is his major devata. So why I'm saying all this, kind of going through hymns, I want to tell you that each rishi has a particular devata to worship, particular victory, spiritual victory over the resistance of our inconscience in our body. So these victories are fixed in these hymns and given to humanity to follow these spiritual battles and to become victorious with the support of the hymns, with the support of the rishis. Yeah? So as Sri Aurobindo says, the rishis are still waiting there and always to assist us in our journey, because they know what we are facing, they know the difficulties we are facing. And these hymns through them become alive, as it were, and help us to overcome those difficulties, obstacles. Indragni from Kutsangirasa are the most famous hymns, to Indra and Agni both, to Ribhus. I am looking for the dawn and the sun, the hymn to the sun by Kutsangirasa. 113, it is to the dawn, so profound hymn. I don't have time to really read through. Then to Rudra by Kutsangirasa, and then to Surya. And to Surya is so beautiful, I want to read maybe one or two lines. Chitram devanam udagat anikam chakshurmitrasya varunasya agneh apradyava prathiviantariksham surya atma jagatastasthusasya. Chitram devanam udagat anikam, the luminous front or the luminous face or army of the gods is rising. The eye of Mitra, of the divine consciousness, of Varuna, of the divine being, of Agni, of the divine will, the eye of the gods is rising. Apradyava prathivi, filling heaven and earth, antariksham, and space in between, Surya, the sun, the self, Atma, Jagatahtasthusasya, of all that moves and moves not. It is the self of all that moves and moves not. Surya, Devim Ushasam Rochamanam, and Surya, the sun, follows Abhyeti, the Devim Ushasam, the goddess dawn. So the dawn first comes first, and then Surya follows her shining. She is shining, luminous. He follows her. Mariona Yosham, as if the young man follows the maiden. As if the man follows after the maiden, he follows after the dawn, the luminous, the sun. Yatra Naro, where the heroic souls of men, Devayanto, seeking the divine manifestation, Yugani, the yugas are the spreadings of time and space, Vitanvate, spread, Pratibhadraya Bhadram, for the blissful, the blissful. They spread the blissful for the blissful in the yugas, in the stretchings of time and space. They spread the blissful for the blissful. There he goes. There he follows her, the dawn, as the young man follows the young maiden, to fulfill all his desires in manifestation. He follows her. This is the beautiful vision of the Rishi. I just wanted to share with you how poetic they are and how beautiful the poetry is. Okay, I will stop here. And because it's, time is short for all of this, it's impossible to give you the whole overview, even of the first mandala. Kakshivan. Kakshivan is another great rishi whose major devata were Ashwins. And when we study Ashwins, we have to come to those rishis whose major devata is that what we want to study. If we want to study about Indra, we have to come to Kutsangiras. If we want to study about Ashwins, we have to come to Kakshivan, because it is his major devata. So you will get the major understanding of these godheads. So I didn't even speak on godheads yet. Maybe next time I will speak on the rishis again and godheads, and will give you some kind of more comprehensive overview of the Rigveda.
Vladimir, I had a quick question.
Yes.
If these rishis were not evolutionary beings, then how did they procreate? How did they have children? I mean,
yeah, they can. For them to come down, as Mother says, they had to take the human body. They had to be embodied. Avatars are also embodied and could have human kind of offspring. It's not the problem. Once you have the human body. And then when you take the human body, this is an interesting question, much more sophisticated, how these evolutionary beings take the human body and not without becoming the evolutionary being.
Exactly.
And this is a more sophisticated question. And I was also wondering about this, and I discussed this with Kirit Joshi, and he explained to me how it works. Evolutionary being and involutionary together. So maybe later next time we will speak about this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm closing with mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santo Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Guru. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you.